As is tradition, guys, today we'll be making the Balance Council tier list for April 2025. I will reiterate the tiers again because I always get comments about them, people understanding. Top tier, really great changes, things that will make cards that aren't good to play or make decks that aren't currently decks, like decent and playable. These are my favorite changes. Good are just good changes. I think they're good overall changes for the game, but they may not be the most impactful things ever, but I still like them. Neutral, I don't really have an opinion on one way or the other, either because I don't think it really does anything, or I don't really care too much about the card in question or its decks, or I'm just undecided on it. Questionable are things that I'm not too sure about, but I lean on the side of not being good, and bad are just changes I don't like. As far as constant, this is what you guys always ask about. These are cards that get changed every single Balance Council or pretty close to it. If they've been changed 4 or more times, I'm putting them down here so I don't have to keep talking about them. I'll just make like a brief statement or something instead of an analysis. So let's begin with the one I don't like. That will be here. Royal Inspiration getting a provision increase. We'll start with the provision increases, and this is technically a buff. The rest are going to be nerfs for this category. I don't like really buffing the leader cards here. There are cards within Knights you could buff instead of just buffing the leader, but I do understand it. Knights are a popular-ish Northern Realms deck usually. I haven't seen too much of lately. They still seem decent when I play them, but I could just be not playing enough games to get a good idea of it. But I could see this. I'd rather buff cards in Knights than the leader, but it's not the worst leader to buff. Next up, we have Temple and Italy. I think this is a really good change. Well, that doesn't make a change. I think the deck's going to be the same. I think deck's going to just like lose a provision and it'll still be fine. The Temple Demoven deck. But yeah, it's still good. I played this deck the last season a bit to try it out, and man, even with our like suspicious adjustments to the deck, it was really strong. So I also tried out a few games with the regular version after making that video, and we just won every single game. That deck's kind of crazy still. So yeah, probably warranted nerf there. Heist, I don't know too much about the Heist change. I'm not a big fan of Heist decks in general. I think they're not fun and interactive to play against, and they also don't really feel that great when you're using them unless you're getting the full combos off on the opponent, and then you just leave the game when you get your 12th Waylay or whatever. Although it is played in the Trapper decks. I really wish this deck was used for its ability outside of just pure combo, maybe like getting value with elves on Turviel, stuff like that, but as it is just as a combo card, I don't really like it, and I'm not sure it needs to be 14 provisions though. But I don't really care. Is basically the answer here. Caratrolli is probably a good change. This card's incredibly strong, has really great synergies with specifically Draco Turtle, although you can also use it with your cards you want to protect. You can hit. This is so it's flexible and it's on-demand removal. Having a removal you can use and specifically reset with Wimvyandra, which is really obnoxious when they do it to you a couple times. It's really good. It gives you good control. It gives you good tempo points on Draco Turtle, also on Sigvald. You can use it on a lower power engine and hit the opponent's card, get a little bit of armor on it. It's a little niche one you can do. It's just really flexible, and having access to a double removal turn is really punishing for opponents to play around, and it carries over really good value, so I can see this one. Hive Mind going to 12. I don't like Hive Mind. That's not true. I think it's a really cool card, and it's fun to play with. I don't like that it's just shoved into Tatterwing to get them units that they can't normally play. And I don't like Tatterwing, but that's a different point. But overall, this getting nerfed makes sense. It's so good. Like, it's just so good. Think about this. You get a Stalker. You get the 4 units, right? 3 of them are engines. 2 of them are very dangerous engines. And they let you play 2 engines in a turn because either you spawn a leader token or you just play what are they called? Organic. If you're not playing Tatterwing, you can play another one and get double engines in one turn. It's just really good. And at 11, it's incredibly strong at 11 provisions. Erendite to 11, I don't know about this. I don't really have a problem with Erendite at the moment. More so the decks that use it with I would rather have, this really is enabled off of the high tempo round 1 decks. I'd rather have things like the old 3-power Roach, stuff like that mitigated those early tempos that also like got you round control, rather than this, which is the payoff to having had those points ahead in round control. So I don't have a problem with Erendite at 10, but I don't think it'd probably be okay at 11 too. I don't have too much to say about this one. Bank. Okay, so we have to talk about Bank here. This just kills Golden Necker Syndicate. But to be fair, other factions have Golden Necker decks without a tutor anything. This can tutor the Golden Necker, which is why it's so deadly in that deck, along with all this other stuff, right? But you can find Golden Necker off of this. in faction because it can play any card. Overall, though, Syndicate was incredibly strong last season. I think it's probably. I mean, the thing is, you can play non-Golden Necker decks in Syndicate. Just Bank is so key to finding your stuff. Other factions and faction tutors are cheaper too. I have mixed feelings about Bank. I'm probably going to put it in good for now, though, because Syndicate was so strong last season. This being out of Golden Necker range is pretty obnoxious, though, for those decks. But, I mean, there's a lot of hits to Golden Necker in this patch, specifically, which we'll get to. So it's not like they're the only faction that hits their Golden Necker decks hit, that's for sure. So let's put this here. I can see arguments for anywhere in here, though. I know some people love Bank at 9. I know some people hate it, but Syndicate was really good. This is just an overall hit to the Syndicate faction. Next, we have Lord Riptide going to 10 for 10 because no one can handle the fact that at 9 power, it doesn't have a might synergy. That's just still a nonsensical argument to me, but I've had people argue with me that before. I don't see it. But 10 for 10, as I said, this is actually, I think Bank belongs in here. Yeah, Bank goes down here. I don't have to rate it. Nice. But yeah, this is definitely Bank's fourth change, I think. But yeah, the Riptide goes down here. This is a brutal hit to the Golden Necker Monsters deck, which is basically the only Monsters deck I played last season. So that's painful, but it's going to be played in everything else still. Just Golden Necker Monsters is going to take a really big hit from this. Megascope, what's this? 1, 2, 4, 5, 4, 5. This is the fourth one too. This is going down here. Megascope at 5, it probably should be 5 rather than 4. It gets more value than most 4 Persian cards, and is usually you see this in Golden Necker decks, is like a 1 of or a 2 of for their big combos on like Greatsword or something. Really high value, really good carryover, things like Crows. Definitely warrants the 5 provision in my opinion. Illusionist. This was what? 4/3. This is going down here too. This is also its fourth change. Instead of being a power nerf, we're now giving it a provision nerf. It's fine. Illusionist is so strong at 4 provisions that, I mean, maybe this gets buffed to 5 power as well. I don't know if there's a 2-part buff plan for this or change, but it's just an incredibly strong 4 provision card. The fact you can just win games off of playing multiple copies of these against certain matchups is hilarious, but I can see this. I don't care too much about it, but at 4 for 4, I think it either had to be 3 power or probably be this. It's very, very strong. Next up, we have Drug. I like Drug. Let's put Drug up here. It's probably not actually a top tier change. It's probably a good change, but we'll give it up here. There may be decks that will use Drug. I'd love to see Drug Northern Realms decks as opposed to just Temple Dem event constantly. So I like this change. Yeah, I just like this change. This is our first of the provision decreases, I should say. Yeah, it's first of them. I was just counting that to make sure we didn't miss one. Yes, it's the first of the provision decreases. So I do like this one. I hope it sees some play. I hope we get some Drog decks. The fact that Revenant got nerfed to 5 provisions recently-ish, I'd rather see Drog decks making the Revenants and being more focused around them than just every Northern Realms deck with Inspired Zeal playing Revenant and using Inspired Zeal charge on it, or just playing it as a win condition if the opponent doesn't answer it. Bacala, I don't like this one though. Bacala going to 11. Bacala, it's already good. It has resilience and it plays for what it gets you. If you already got your deck stacked, you get a Marine. It comes out with 5 points at the end of the turn. You got the 4 in the ship, so it comes out with 9 points. You get 4 more points on it. That's what, 13? And those 4 points of carryover. It's not the best carryover because it does take 2 units, but it does move things as well. It's already good. Like if you guys haven't played, there was the older Shoop Soldier decks that we played where you had like Truffle, this, Ale, and just carried over all the artifacts. Actually, they didn't play this. They played something else. We played this. But yeah, you can just carry over a bunch of artifacts round 2 into 3 after going battle stations round 1, and then you just have a bunch of carryover artifacts. I don't really think that's a great deck to buff, but yeah, I don't like this one, I don't think. But we'll see. It's not like Nilfgaard's the strongest faction at the moment, so we'll see. This is just not one of the cards I've chosen to buff. Regis, this is a good one. Regis is a fun card. We have yet to actually make a deck on. We will do that, I think, this season because he got a buff. Or specifically with movement in general. There's a lot of the neutral movement payoff stuff that got buffed. I want to try it out. But this is a good one. He's cheaper, easier to fit in decks. and he does require you to build around him quite a bit. So either you put out your spine cards, you damage stuff down to 1. I guess you could play Patricital Fury if you wanted to. Obviously, you can't do it in the same turn as you use his ability because he has initiative. But there's just a really fun card that has a lot of cool potential synergies that doesn't get played. And hopefully, if they'll get played, there's some options as well getting buffed that might make this more desirable. Monroe. We'll put Monroe in good. Monroe is a very strong engine card. I've used some Monroe decks, but obviously recently it's just been Precision Strike Dwarves. And he's not playing Precision Strike Dwarves because you generally just want to use the armor specifically on things like your Zoltan, on a couple of specific cards, and then you don't want to have this guy out. He needs armor every turn. Having him have armor from the Mahakam Forge is good. If this incentivizes Mahakam Forge to get Dwarves some deck diversity instead of just playing Precision Strike, I'm down for it. So that's the main reason I like this, because it doesn't play into the normal standard Precision Strike Dwarves at the moment, I don't think, particularly well. So I think this is an interesting one. Dragon's Dream will put in good. This is 9. It's Golden Echo range. Does that matter for Dragon's Dream? I guess if you could set up a... We'll get to a couple cards later. Specifically, Nivellen and Geralt Ard are also getting buffed. If this gets to combo with those, the problem with that combo is it takes time to go off for the Dragon's Dream. So it's kind of the issue. You don't want to do that all in one turn, I wouldn't think. The opponent probably won't move their units out of that row, but if you play Dragon's Dream and then on the turn before Dragon Dreams go off, play your stuff that shoves everything to that row, that might be better. But I'm not sure the Golden Necker will make any combo decks with this, but it is just cheaper as an option to maybe do a movement-based, offensive movement-based decks, which we might try out as well. Kind of like this. I think I want to try and use these guys. Next up, we have the Provision buff to Ku. It's going down here. Ku's already a good card. I'm not sure why we're buffing this when Nilfgaard has a bunch of other things that can be options, but I guess everyone just loves Ku and playing it cheaper because it's already good. Make it better. I mean, that's not the philosophy I like, but if you think that's the only way to make your faction better, I guess. Nivellen, this is a cool one as well. So Nivellen's now an 8 for 7. That's really nice, actually. The movement is kind of cool. It needs a little bit of movement synergies, but he's getting close to the range where he's almost, I say almost, not really, but he's approaching an attackable option against things that really want to have specific rows. You'd still want to play Payoff, but I think that maybe now this provision buff for 16 on this combo, maybe it's worth trying out outside of just memeing around. We'll see. Next up, Highland Warlord. The fact that people want this at 5 always amazes me. It gives you probably 6 points of damage carryover if we're being generous and saying you're only playing 6 raids after this, which is a bit of a low roll there, I'm going to say. But it's 6 points of carryover on damage. I don't think this card should be 5. It's clearly a 6 version card, and a lot of people accept that, and a lot of people put it back and forth. But yeah, I really think it should be 6, but whatever. Demon Smuggler, I don't know about this one here. It didn't see play at 6. It went to 4 for 6. It saw play there. Back to 3 for 5. So this plays for what? 8 for 5 with a 2 damage. Yeah, this card's just... It's probably fine. I don't mind this. I just haven't seen any Otkel decks or anything. Those are usually the ones I see playing this. I'll go in Pirates as well, but haven't seen it in Pirates since it's nerf. But yeah, we'll see. Eavesdrop, I love this change actually. Eavesdrop going to 4 is really nice. This gives Syndicate an option for some consistency. Bank got hit. This gets buffed. This is nice because you can put your King of Beggars in the bottom of your deck when you draw them, which is always really annoying. The fact that it gives you coins, it's only 4 provisions, but you can just slot it in now. You don't have to worry about it. You can place one of your other crimes if you're running like a Slander or something you don't feel like you need. Maybe you're running a Smuggle, something like that for a little bit of coin generation, your bronze 4 provision specials. So I like this one quite a bit. Kraken, we're on to power increases here, which for Kraken is a nerf, funnily enough. But yeah, now Kraken will not be able to kill himself with his Storm, which I like. This up here. This card's it's mainly just a mid-range card, right? You play this at Renfrey. You play this in your decks that you just want to secure around with the Kraken Storm. Rain's not a deck anymore. No one plays Rain. It's played in Beasts and mid-rangey decks like those. So yeah, This is probably good that you should put a little more effort in to kill this than just killing itself. Vincent. Well, I guess we have two Vincents on here. Vincent here. I think it's a good change. I think it's good to buff this card. Because it doesn't see any play. However, this card has a really high ceiling and a low floor, and it's quite annoying to play against. That being said, I've never seen anyone play it in like 2 years, so we don't have to say that too much. But back when this card was occasionally played, and by occasionally I mean very, very rarely, sometimes you just play your big high power card like, hey, I got a Vincent, now you're down 10 power on your old spear tip. But overall, probably a good thing to buff this guy. I'm curious, we're going to try him out. There are certain things that he's quite good against that might be popular. So, for example, Raid Warriors with their buffs again. He's pretty good against the tier. You'll set up a killing blow on it. He's pretty good against the Patricidal Fury, the Arnulf. So he's got uses. Pretty much up dependent, but a good card to have a buff to. Adastriga. Let's put this in top tier. I don't think this is a secret. I've always loved the Adastriga decks, specifically with the combo with the Lampshin, the one you get off of the oh, what's the name of it? Wow, I forgot. The card that gives your opponent I had it for a second there. The one that lets you pick a card in your hand. Each pick a card in your hand, and then if yours is higher, it transforms to a thing from the box. Mysterious Puzzle Box. How did I forget that? Well, I know why I forgot it. So we've been messing around with Adastriga, not publishing the video yet because I want to give it a little change, but we had a spicy Adastriga deck we were working on that didn't use Puzzle Box or Harpies. So I'll let you guys try and figure out what we were using then. But yeah, this is an interesting change because you can always just eat the Harpy token now without having to buff it, which is a really big thing for it. And it can also eat 6 power tokens from the opponent. It does go really tall if you eat a 6 provision. I keep saying that. You just 6 power token. This is really big. Goes to 19, so it gets spores, which is really punishing, and you lost the token value. You can buff this thing up, but I think the real thing with this is that it's just easier to do on the Harpy tokens without having to use setup from like Carapace or something. It still has a really high reach. Like, sure, if your opponent's still, if your opponent's playing an Arnulf and you just put 2 Carapace charges on this, or 3 Carapace charges on this and eat it, you could have done that before too. So this is mainly just a buff IC to eating the tokens of your own from the Harpy eggs without having to buff this thing. Next up, we have Geralt Ard. Got a deck in mind for him as well, and it probably involves these guys right here. So Geralt Ard is probably this is a card I've always wanted to see played. It's getting close. Getting close to the mid-range range. It's 11 for 8 value now. If you're just not even getting anything out of the movement. That being said, it's a bit conditional. You can't move things. It only moves things to the ranged row. We can't mess with range row effects that are row locked. But overall, I just want to see this guy get played. Geralt's such an iconic character, and he's the main character of The Witcher, so why? I would just like to see all the Geralts be playable. Obviously, Yurden, that's not going to happen for, but the other ones we can hopefully see playable. And I like this. We'll be trying out some movement stuff with them. Next up, we have Cynthia. It's, to be fair, well, in my games at least, Clog was like the best Nilfgaard. Yeah. In my games, Clog was the best Nilfgaard deck. I don't think that's actually true. This is just the one I saw at higher MMRs. I don't like that deck, but I don't think it's amazingly strong. So buffing Cynthia, sure, whatever. The problem is it's going to be slotted back into Renfrew decks probably just as another annoying tech option. Not necessarily probably, but people do that. They still play Traherne in those decks sometimes as well. So this is kind of like in that vein. You can do the combo with this in Mata. Then we've got the Fringilla. I do like Fringilla. I'm putting this in neutral just because I'm personally opposed to it. Not opposed. I personally don't like it, even if I think it might overall be good for the card. After all, this is my opinion here. And I will try to admit when I have some biases. Then we have Fringilla. I love Construct Nilfgaard. I think it's one of the better, more fun Nilfgaard decks. And this is a buff to it for a card that doesn't see play and hopefully could be pretty interesting. I don't think it'll be amazing in that deck still, but maybe we'll try it out a bit. Vincent, other Vincent, I should say. Vincent Van Morlhelm. I like this change. Put Vincent up here by the other Vincent. I haven't seen him get much play even in the Status Aristocrat deck, but I've only seen a couple of those decks lately. So not a bad card to give a buff to. I don't think it'll replace Leo Bonheart as the main removal in Nilfgaard, or Vilgefortz as well. I don't think it'll replace them, but maybe a little bit better option for statuses that don't currently play him that much. Then again, obviously it's just based on what I see. Maybe people are playing him and I just don't realize it. Nausicaa, I have said my thing on Nausicaa a whole bunch of times. I think Slave Driver is the bigger problem. Slave Driver is now at 6. However, Slave Driver to get a power buff to be 4 for 6. I thought Slave Driver at 6, 3 for 6 with Nausicaa at 4 was fine. We'll have to see. I mean, you could probably just spam Nausicaa Slave Drivers again and just win a bunch of games. So that is what it is. But yeah, nothing to do about this. This is always going to be 4 or 3. I don't foresee this ever not being in the Balance Council. Yeah. So for Bolt Builders, I do like this one. It's not a very commonly seen card. It has something of an engine effect that's not too useful. Usually in the deck that like to run it, or would like to run it hypothetically, would be the pirates and ships. But it has some uses. Maybe you'll get some play. I'm down for this card getting buffed. I've played this a few times actually, mainly in Otkel decks as a one of bonus ship to have another target if people were squirreling both or my long ships, but it didn't seem great there. So buff to it is interesting. Miner. Now this one, I'm a little neutral on, to be honest. Miner's already like pretty decent. I already saw people playing Miner in like mid-range decks with Shiru and stuff. Like this was one of the 4 prisoners they throw in. So I'm not sure how I feel about a power buff to Miner. Yeah, I'm just not sure how I feel about this. It does ostensibly help dwarves, or specifically the armor dwarves, but I mean, they probably just throw this into their precision strike decks now as an option to give a little bit more armor to things like their Sultan. I'm not sure I'm a fan of this one. Next up, we have Military. Yeah, I'm just going to put her here. It's probably good to nerf her power by 1, as this is going to be the first of the power decreases. Yes. Last category here. Probably good to decrease her power by 1. She is really obnoxious in her decks when she comes down as a big finisher. I don't want to make her more expensive because those decks, like, they do play in a fairly unique manner, but she is really big, so I'm okay with this. I don't have a big problem with her in particular in her decks. They're just annoying to play against. Demavend, where's Temple? Demavend's still insane. He thins your deck by 3, tutors any cards you want, has the option to play the other 2 if the opponent doesn't interact with him, puts 2 engines on the board in 1 turn. So much he does. And at 6 power instead of 7, because obviously he's being Inspired Zeal. Yes, it takes Inspired Zeal charge. I do realize that. But at 6, he's more removable. At 7 power, you don't really remove Demavend without Heat Wave. If you're Heat Waving the Demavend, you're feeling really bad. And besides, with Redanian Secret Service back at 6 power, that'd be insane. 6 provision. If you lock Demavend, he's probably getting unlocked because there's going to be a Secret Service in that deck. You really have to hard remove him most of the time. And what they're just going to do is then they're going to winch him the next turn if they didn't banish both winches for his ability and use them again. So, incredibly powerful card. I do think he probably deserves to be at this 6 power level. Along with this guy here, 6 power after the Inspired Zeal is what I mean, obviously. 6 power, we do have Svalblood. We'll put this in top tier. Svalblood Self Wounds, one of the best decks. Been one of the best decks in Skellige for a long time. And Svalblood is incredibly punishing as anything that plays a bunch of units. Now, he'd be a little bit weaker. One of the big issues with Svalblood is that you can revive him with the Sacrifice's Right, and then he's hard to kill because he comes back at 7. People do that pretty frequently. Obviously, you can also bring back Knut the Callous, Sigvald, Dracotaurus, other things you can bring back. But my issue with Svalblood a lot of time is that you play him, do you get your long round win by blowing everything up, then you write him back and do it all again. Because when he comes back at 7 power, it's kind of hard to remove him. If he comes back at 6, now you can hit him with something else like a Decoction, a Parasite, whatever your 6 damage special might be. And if you don't have that, you can hit with a 5 damage special, and he'll kill himself after 1 use. So I think this is definitely warranted. Laura, I hate this change. I'm just going to be out here, tell you guys, I hate this Laura change. Losing a power is a massive buff to Tatterwing. Like, this is a huge buff to Tatterwing. So much so that I don't think this Hive Mind actually matters. But yeah, Laura at 4 means when you play her to your opponent's board with Tatterwing, she still dies, she's still at 1. You have the Frost out. Then what you do is when you bring her back with your Gels, you don't have to play Ardgaith anymore because you play Ardgaith, it puts out 6 turns of Frost, she'd be at 5, she'd kill herself. Now you can play her, play Gels, play Red Riders, put out 4 turns of Frost, and then she still kills herself because she's at 4 power, which means you don't run Ardgaith anymore. Instead, you get to run Red Riders. You get a 3 provision buff to Tatterwing. Let's be honest here, Tatterwing doesn't care about the extra Frost procs from Ardgaith over Red Riders. It's just a buff to the deck. They don't really want the Echo, they just want the Ardgaith to go off once to kill the Tatterwing. Against the deck, you usually just row stack a whole row because you know they're going to play Ardgaith, and you don't want to have all your guys on both rows for it to proc. So now you can just put all that Frost in one row. And all of a sudden, boom, your Tatterwing deck now has 3 provisions back in it. I guess you lose 1 here, so you're only up 2 provisions overall. And you do get a little bit less Frost value, but usually you're playing the Tatterwing combo with Lara. In your Tatterwing deck, the Lara combo near the end of the round anyway, once you've got all your tokens out on the board, so you're not really losing that much Frost value. So, yeah, I really don't like this change. I don't like a 3 provision buff to Tatterwing on this. I think it was fine. And people will argue with me, as they have done, that this is a buff to Frost because Lara can be played in Frost. No, she cannot be played in Frost, guys. I've tried it. She's only a Tatterwing card. Only a Tatterwing card. This is a buff to that deck. So I don't like this. Tatterwing is already a pretty solid deck, and it's really obnoxious to play against. This will just make it more so and give it a nice big buff. Next up, we have Ignatius. This is a good one, I think. So Ignatius is it's a small enough nerf to Syndicate Bounty, which was one of the better decks. I prefer this over the one we'll get to in a minute, but I think this and the Bank are probably enough to keep those decks down. Fair enough nerfs here. Bank does a lot, but I think this is a good change specifically. Erlerin lost to power. Someone commented on my Elf video if they thought the deck would get nerfed, and I said Erlerin will probably lose a power, and that's exactly what happened, but yeah, this is good. The provision decrease on this last season made playing just the Waylays, not the Waylays, the Heist, not the Heist, what am I talking about? The Feign Death scenario, just saying all the cards here. The Feign Death scenario are really common, and you just place a tempo options to come out and be pretty powerful. I think toning it down from 5 power when it comes out to 4 at this provision level makes a lot more sense. It's probably good, and overall that should keep that deck from being too obnoxious. Menno and Ferko both lost to power. I don't really care, to be honest. Is this warranted? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, all these 2 power, the tutor out of your deck, the special cards, I don't like them all getting buffed down in provisions in the first place, but they did. Sure, you can make these 1 if you want to. It does make this into battle stations worse. It makes this into like Justice worse, this into whatever else worse. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about this just because whatever people are going to do with these, they're going to do with them. Alumni losing a power, I should say. This makes it more answerable. It means it's not as potent. It means when you make a copy of it off of your Chapter of Wizards, you can kill it usually at 4 instead of 5. It means it's worth less power overall. I never liked the alumni changes the way to buff alumni, so I think reverting that's probably good. And then last we have Executioner from 5 to 4. I think this is a bit excessive, to be honest here. We'll put this down here in questionable. I mean, we got Ignatius nerfed, we got Bank nerfed. I think this, on top of that's a bit much, to be honest. I would have rather just seen Bank and this over that. Or I guess maybe this and neither of these, but I think Bank probably is fair. We'll see. But yeah, I think this is questionable. This is a lot of nerfs to Bounty. So that is the tier list, guys. Let me look it over, see if I'm happy with this. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is what we're going to go with here. Yeah, so this is what we'll say here. Once again, guys, as always, let me know what you think, or you agree, disagree. Just keep it civil. People, you guys usually do that, so don't have to worry about it too much. But this will be the Balance Council tier list for the upcoming patch. Again, there's several things we want to try, and we'll get into the season summary then. Let's get into the season summary, guys. As always, just remember, these are the games I played on my ladder. These are not necessarily the best representation of the ladder, because it is not the biggest sample size. It's like 200 games. And Obviously, I could just run to more things or less things than you do, and that's just kind of how it goes. But it's always fun to look at this. So, the most popular faction I saw in my games was Nilfgaard at 24%, Monsters at 23%, Scoia'tael at 21%. Then we got the 16% Skellige, 9% Syndicate, and 7% Northern Realms. No surprise here, the Elf deck was pretty popular, at least earlier in the season. Nilfgaard and Monsters are always pretty popular, and then Syndicate kind of pulling ahead of Northern Realms, mainly due to a variety of bounty stuff we encountered. So that is interesting, but not too surprising, I would say. Onto the decks, though. This is where it gets a little crazy. As always, we have on the left side here, this is the number of games we encountered these decks. Bottom is the decks, and the little numbers on the bars are the average difference in MMR from my average MMR of the season. So, for example, if my average MMR of the season was like 2450, just as an example, then we on average encountered Arachis Swarm at 2480, whereas we encountered Renfree Vampires at 2425. That's just what this is. Now, for the actual decks, the most common thing we saw was Control Fruits. Not surprising there. Then we saw a bunch of Renfree Crochet Harpies, some Frost, some V. The V decks were all near the end of the season, and as you can see here, they're actually pretty high up on the ladder. So I don't know if that was just a late season thing, but it became pretty popular, and they seemed quite strong. So I'm not sure, maybe, I don't want to give it a try, but we might have to, because we have requests for it. Then we've got just some Tatterwing, Arachis Swarm, Golden Necker Fruits, Golden Necker Vampires, and some Renfree Vampires for monsters. The V threw me off a little bit. I'm surprised to see so many of those this season. 3 is not all that many, but compared to these, it's never really that popular, I think. But other than that, yeah, this is about what I expected. Hopefully there's nothing too crazy in the other factions. I actually have not. So I entered the data, and I haven't actually checked these yet. So we're going to kind of be reacting to these, because the spreadsheets update automatically, so I didn't look at these before recording. So for Nilfgaard, we have the most common deck being Renfree Hyperthin. That seems correct. Then we have Shoop Assimilate. Then we have Mill. Yeah, Mill. Clog. Yeah, of the top 5 most popular Nilfgaard decks I saw this season, 2 were Renfree, 1 was Mill, and 1 was Clog. So that was awesome. That's why I didn't like playing Nilfgaard this season. But yeah, Renfree Soldiers down here as well. You can see these guys weren't too high up on the ladder, other than Clog, which was pretty high in my games at least. Then some Enslave Assimilate, some Spotters, and some Status Aristocrats. But yeah, overall, the Nilfgaard decks we encountered kind of lower on the ladder, other than the Clog was pretty high up on average. A couple, I want to say like 1 or 2 of the Renfree decks were higher up on the ladder too, but we countered a bunch of these Renfree ones at the beginning of our placement games this season, so, you know, we're already like 2400 when that happens. For Northern Realms, we only encountered 2 decks more than once, which would be the Temple Demavend, which was by far the better one, and then a couple Ship Ballista combo decks. You know, they just spam out everything with orders, and they put like 50 points of Ship Ballista orders on the Witcher trio, and they reset it and things like that. I don't think there's anything really useful here. This is normally how it goes. Although occasionally some knights in here. Most popular Skellige deck, we have Golden Necker Warriors, which is nice to see. They were playing Reckless Flurry mainly, not our Self-Wound version we did a couple months ago. Some Raid Warriors, which were actually pretty high up. Some Pirates, Lippy, and then down here we have some Renfree Beasts. Not too surprising here, although the Raid Warriors doing pretty well considering their current, got a couple nerfs recently. I say recently, I'm not including this Balance Council when I'm saying recently. I'm just saying from the seasons it's played in. For Scoia'tael, we've got Elves. Pretty common, actually. Decently high up. Normally, a pretty typical game would be like against Elves this season. We got a bunch of Trapper Slam. This is not the Elf deck. This is the Elf deck that plays a whole bunch of traps with Heist and just replays the Trapper to seize your guys over and over. Renfree hand buff, Golden Necker hand buff, Symbiosis, and Precision Strike Control. The only one that did decent well of these was the Symbiosis. And lastly, for Syndicate here, we have Bounty. Well, actually, start with Golden Necker Bounty. I think this may have been the best deck last season. It was really, really good. One of the best decks last season overall. Then we have regular Bounty, Golden Necker Salamander. People playing this with the Bounty leader to throw the opponents off, I think. And then if you don't realize it's Salamander, you lose the game. So yeah, they were just playing the Bounty leader, these two people. They're playing the Bounty leader, and then they were also just playing Executioners and the regular Bounty cards round 1. And if you passed the, them getting ahead with the Bounty leader, they would just go straight round 3 combo on you with Golden Necker and you'd lose the game. So meta call, I guess, worked out against me. Both of these people won because I didn't see that coming. Then we have a double scenario Forgotten Treasures. And overall, oh, should change this axis here, that's for sure. Forgot to check these. Top it down to 7, doesn't make much of a difference here. But the most popular ones overall, we've got Fruits, Hyper Thin, Renfree, Golden Necker Warriors, Elves, Shoops Assimilate, Koshi, Renfree Harpies, Mill, Frost, Demven, Temple, Trappers, and Bounties for Golden Necker. This seems about right from what I encountered. Guys, let me know if this is about what you see on the ladder. I'm always curious to see if your experience lines up with mine. As far as leaders or monsters, mostly got Fruits of Yizgith, but we do have representation for all of them, which is nice. Force of Natures, Blood Sense, Rakastorm, Overwhelming Hungers, Tide, Long Frost, and lowest would be Carapace. We did see a Ogroid deck. Something else is playing Carapace too. I don't recall exactly. It's more of a meme strategy. But yeah, overall, not too surprising here. Fruits, typically going to be pretty common. For Northern Realms, we mostly have Inspired Zeal, some Shield Wall, some Mobilization, Pentamaneuver, no Uprising, no Royal Inspiration, no Stockpile. Like I said, I didn't see much Northern Realms this season. For Scoia'tael, the most common thing we saw was Deadeye Ambush. A lot of different, well, the 2 different trap decks were using this, Elves and then the Trappers. Then Precision Strike, Tactics, Invigorate for the hand buffs, Call of Harmony, Nature's Gift Tide, and no Mahakam Forge. Dwarves just basically playing Precision Strike at this point because it's just better than playing Mahakam Forge Dwarves. I'm pretty sure it's, well, I'm not pretty sure. I'm certain it's better, and I just don't like it as much. I don't think it's as much in the Dwarf style. To just play all the Dwarves in here, play Agitators, get your armor that way with the Chariots, and not bother with the Forge. It's better. I don't like it. Not that has anything to do with this. Most popular Skelga leaders, we have Blaze of Glory, Raid Warriors, mainly Reckless Flurry. That's the Golden Necker decks. We've got Onslaught, Hatchicidal Furies, and then all down here to Tide, Rage of the Sea, Battle Trance, Earthsign Ritual. Earthsign Ritual surprisingly low, although once again, I'm pretty sure Self Wound was one of the best decks last season. Whenever we played Self Wound, we just like won every game. It also really hard countered the Elf deck, because Svalbard just destroys all the Elves in their long round. So, not common though, because people weren't playing it very much at our MMR. Most popular Nilfgaard leaders, we've got the Tactical Decision, mainly for Renfree and Mill decks. Double Cross, again, for Renfree and Mill decks. Actually, this is a little bit more for Shoop as well. Although it was at least one Mill playing this. Then Imperial Formations, and then just tied down here, Imprisonment, Imposter, Enslave, and Toussaint Hospitality. Mix of stuff in here, but all of them getting some representation. And in Syndicate, it's basically just blood money at this point. 8 blood monies, 2 caches, 2 jackpots, and 1 pockets. Nothing else got any representation. Overall, those popular leaders this season that we saw were Deadeye Ambush, Fruits, Decision, Blood Money, Blaze of Glory, Double Cross, Strike, Fury, Flurry, and Formation. Then some Force Natures, Blood Sense, and Guerrilla Tactics. Nothing too surprising once again. And then for least popular, again, this is the things down here are the 1 or lesses. Northern Realms and Syndicate getting a lot of the population down here. Surprised we didn't see any Pirates Cove, but Collusion isn't that common. Congregation, I do understand not being popular. Then the one Mahakam Forge. Actually, off the books here, yeah. 3 of these are Northern Realms, 3 of these are Syndicate, which is probably just a factor of these 2 being the least played factions I saw last season. We got some of these 1-ofs here. And for the neutral packages this season, mainly we're seeing this was a lot higher. At the beginning of the season, like the first week or 2 of the season, we were at like 20% Renfree. But then the Renfree decks disappeared when we rose our MMR closer to 2,500. They kind of stopped, which was nice. But once we got out of the placement games and got actually into decent MMRs, the Renfree decks disappeared mostly. So they were mainly at the beginning of the season, 8% of them, 7% Golden Necker, and then we got the 4% Shoop. This was a lot higher at the beginning of the season too. Actually, just 3%. And then a little bit of these guys down here. As far as Devotions this season in my games really fell off. 77% non-Devotion with 23% Devotion. I'm not surprised. A lot of decks were just using neutrals. And obviously everything that's on this list up here was using neutrals, which is like 30% or 20% of the games. And lastly here for your guys' section here, favorite section, we've got the disconnectors. We had a Renfree hand buff player disconnect on us, a Renfree Precision Strike Hyper Control player disconnect on us. The Hyper Control guy, this guy, he Curse of Corruption himself and then left the game. So that was nice. And Nilfgaard Bomb player, who also left the game. Yeah. We made an Erland off of Temple literally round 3 against this guy, and he just quit when we played it with immunity. So that is the season summary. Pretty fun, you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this season. Looking forward to the next season. Do have some things to try out, and we will see you then.